Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we're going to start with chapter 15, conic sections. I'm not going in a deep details in conic section. I'm just giving you an overview and a summary for most of the rules for circles, ellipse, parabola, and hyperbola. Okay, let's start with the parabolas here. Before I go for the rules, you have to know some terminology or some terms. Let's start with the meaning of the parabola. The parabola means that set of points that are equidistant in equal distance from a fixed point in a fixed line. The fixed point here, we call it the focus, and the fixed line here, we call it directrix. As you see here, fixed point from focus, fixed distance from focus, and fixed distance from directrix. The same here again. Distance from the focus and distance from the directrix are equal. So the focus here is just the fixed point on inside the curve. And the directrix is a fixed line that the curve does not touch it below the curve, okay? And the vertex is just a point in the midway between the focus and the directrix. Here's the midpoint. We call it vertex, okay? Then we have the distance between focus and vertex. This distance, we call it the focal length, and we give it the symbol P. Then we have another term, we call it the focal chord. What is the focal chord? The focal chord is the distance, is the line passing through the focus and two endpoint on the curve. Here is the focal chord. Here is the focus and two endpoint on the curve. So this one, we call it focal chord. And it's equal to 4 times the focal length, or 4p. Okay, good. So we still have the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry is just a dashed line pass through the vertex and divide my curve into equal parts. After you know this terminology, let's go for the rules for the standard form of the parabola. But before we go for this, originally, while you're drawing any parabola, the center for it, or the vertex for it, originally would be the origin, right? 0 and 0. But you could switch or shift this curve or the parabola up or down, or right or left, right? Now, if you shift it like this, so this means that you are changing the position on the x-axis. So you're gonna add or subtract to the x. And if you shift it up or down like this, so this means that you're gonna add to the y-axis or subtract from the y-axis. That's why you have the letter H and the letter K, okay? So originally, while you are drawing a parabola, you're starting from the origin, 0 and 0. The vertex is 0 and 0. And once you shift it up or down or left or right, this means that you are adding for the x, or adding or subtracting from the y. So that's why we have to add some letters here, which is H and K. The H is how you shift it on the x-axis or the horizontal shift, and K, how you shift it on a vertical shift, okay? Now let's go for the rule. This is the original equation we have here. If it's open vertically, focus open vertically, so this means that it's going up, or open down. So you have the squared on the x. If it's open horizontally, this means that you have the squared on the y. So the rule here, x minus h all to power 2 equal 4b times y minus k. If the squared on the x part, so it's open vertically. If the squared on the y part, it's open horizontally. Good? Good. Now, how I know if it's open up or down, right or left? This is depend on the b. And b here is the focal length. Good. Now, if b is greater than 0, so it's open up. If b is smaller than 0, so it's open down. here. If B is smaller than 0, so it's opening to the left. If B is greater than 0, so it's opening to the right. So before you start anything, just focus. It's open vertically or open horizontally. How I know this? From the squared part. The squared part would be on the X, so it's vertical. The squared part would be on the Y, so it's horizontally. After this, I'm gonna look for the B. It's open up or down, or left or right. How I know the vertex? The vertex is so easy. H and K, but you have to change the sign. If the H here is negative, so you have to put it positive. If the K is positive, make it negative. Before you take it from the equation, you have to change the sign. For example, if it's here -3, so you're gonna, and here's 4. So my vertex would be 3 and -4. Good. Now let's go for the focus. The focus here, if it's open vertically, you're gonna leave the H word and add the B to the K. If it's open horizontally, you're gonna add the B for the H. So if you need the focus, it's just the vertex, but you're gonna add the B. If it's open vertically, you're gonna add it to the K. If it's open horizontally, you're gonna add it to the H. And the axis of symmetry, if it's open vertically, is just equal to what? Equal to H. If it's open horizontally, it's equal to K. The directrix. Now, again, you have to look first if it's open vertically or open horizontally. If it's open horizontally, so you just subtract B from the K. If it's open horizontally, you're gonna subtract H from the H. Subtract B from the H. So again, the directrix is just subtracting B. But if it's open vertically, you subtract it from K. And if it's open horizontally, you subtract it from H. The focal chord, the same rule, it's 4 times B. And the focal length is just B. I hope I summarized all of the rules here. Let's try to solve some problem on the part that we have discussed before. What is the direction of the opening of the parabola? Okay, first start to look where the squared part. The squared part here on the X, so this means it's open vertically. Now, I need to know it's up or down, so this means I have to look to the B. And the B would be beside this part. So here it's negative. So this means it's down. Now, what is the direction of the opening of the parabola with vertex -2 and 4 and focus at -2 and 6? Okay, it's just like act smart. You know that the focus inside the curve. So if I have a vertex like this, here's the vertex. Let me don't try this guy here. Here's the vertex. -2 and 4. And you are increasing the y. The 4 becomes 6. So it's -2 and 6. This is the focus. So this means that you are going up. You still have the same value of x, but the increase in the y. If you have decrease in y, this means that you are going down. What is the vertex of the parabola? Okay, the first part, open vertically or horizontally? The squared part on the y, so it's open horizontally. Because the y comes first. So besides the y, all the time you have k, and besides the x, you have the h, right? So you have to change the sign. H and k, the vertex, it's h and k. You have to change the sign. So it would be -1 and 2. The parabola represented by y plus 1 power 2 equal -8 times x minus 3 has its vertex at. Okay, this is k and this is h. So it's 3 and -1. What is the equation of the axis of symmetry of the parabola? The first step, look first. Open horizontally or open vertically? The squared part on x, so it's open vertically. So this means that the axis of symmetry, x equal h. So where is the h? It's 3. So x equal 3. What is the equation of the parabola with vertex at -4 and 2 and directrix y equal 5? Okay, vertex, it's h and k. And the directrix y equal 5 means it's open vertically. Because he say y equal 5. Good. You remember the rule for the directrix? The directrix y equal k minus b. So I have the y, which is 5, and I have the k, which is 2. So I could get the focal length. So here, 5 minus 2 equal negative b. So 3 equal negative b. So b equal negative 3. You remember the rule? The rule said x, if it's open vertically, x minus h all to the power 2 equal 4b times y minus k. So I have to multiply the b times 4. So negative 3 times 4 give me negative 12. So here is my answer. If a gate is shaped like a parabola, here's a gate, and okay, and a lamp is hang at the focus. Here's the focus. Okay, and of course, I made it look down because I have a negative sign here. Have you noticed something here? There's no h and k. If you don't have h and k, this means that your vertex was 0 and 0. So vertex 0 and 0. Good. Now, so this means my equation would be x power 2 equal 4b times y because there's no h and there is no k. But I already gave me equation here, y equal negative x power 2 over 144. So this means here that x power 2 equal negative 144y. So this means that the 4b equal to negative 144. Negative 4b equal negative to 144. So divide by negative 4. So p equal 36. And why I get b? Because the distance from vertex to focus, I call it the focal length p. Let's go for ellipses. The ellipse is just like two parabola combined together. Here's the first one, and here's the second one. And of course, for the parabola, we have a focus. Now we have to focus. Or two foci. Focus 1 and focus 2. Good. Now, we have two axes. Major axis and minor axis. The major axis is the largest one, and the minor axis is the smallest one. On the major axis, you have vertex, but on the minor axis, you have co-vertex. Now, the midpoint between the two foci, I call it center. And the distance between the center to the vertex, I call it semi-major axis, A. So this means that the major axis equal to 2 times A. And the distance between the center and the co-vertex, here, I call it semi-minor axis, B. So this means that the minor axis equal to 2b. And the distance between the center And the focus, I call it linear eccentric C. Okay, here's all the symbols that you have to know and the terminology. Now let's go for the rules. We have a standard form for the equation. It's the same, but we have to look if the major axis is horizontal or the major axis is vertical. If the major axis is horizontal, this means that you start with a power 2. If the major axis was vertical, so this means that you start with p power 2. So pay attention for this one. All the time the center would be h and k, but we have to change the sign. Now the foci, if it's horizontal from the h, horizontal, this means that you add or subtract c to the h. And if it's vertical, this means that you add or subtract c from the k. So the foci would be add or subtract c from the h. If it's horizontal, if it's vertical, add or subtract c from the k. It's the same with parabola, but we were doing this for the b, not the c. You remember? Okay, now the vertices, if it's horizontal, you're gonna add or subtract a to the h. And if it's vertical, you're gonna add or subtract a to the k. Now for covertices, it's p. Now, if it's horizontal, you add for the k. And if it's vertical, you add to the h, positive or minus p. So let me summarize it again. If you are searching for foci, you add or subtract c. Horizontal, you add to the h. Vertical, you add to the k. If it's vertices, this means that you add or subtract a. Horizontal, you add to the h. Vertical, you add to the k. If it's covertices, now you're gonna switch. You're gonna add b, but for horizontal, you add it to the k, and for vertical, you add it to the h. The major axis, if it's horizontal major axis, so y equal k, and if it's vertical major axis, so x equal h. The minor axis, you switch. If it's horizontal, so x equal h. If it's vertical, so y equal k. Then we have the eccentric. The eccentric E equals c over a. The c is the linear eccentric, which is the distance between the center and the focus, over a. The a, which is the semi-major axis. Okay, so all the time eccentric between 0 and 1. If the eccentric is 0, this means that you change the ellipse to the circle. So last thing here I want you to know is the relation between the A and B and C. Now A all the time would be greater than B because A is the semi-major axis, so all the time would be greater than the minor axis. So A is greater than B, okay? And the C power 2 equal A power 2 minus P power 2. So to get the C, which is the linear eccentric, you have to take the square root for it. I hope the rules are clear and all the terminology here. What is the equation of the ellipse whose major axis ends at -3 and 4 and 3 and 4, and whose minor axis ends at 0 and 2 and 0 and 6? Okay, that's good. As you see here, for the major axis, to get any equation, I need the vertex, I need the major axis, and I need the minor axis, and I need also to know if it's horizontal major axis or vertical major axis. Now, let's see. As you see here, the x-axis is changes, or the x-coordinate is changes. So this means that I have a horizontal major axis. And from -3 to 3, 6 units. And you know that the major axis is equal to 2a. So 2a equals 6. This means that the a equals 3. So a power 2 equals 9. Good. I need to know also the minor axis. It changes from 2 to 6. So 4 units. To b equal 4. So this means that the b equal 2 and b power 2 equal 4. Good. So I'm searching for an equation. Start with a power 2, right? Good. But I still don't know the vertex yet. The vertex is the midpoint between the end point of the major axis, or yes, of the major axis, right? So here I need to get the midpoint. So it would be midpoint -3 plus 3 over 4 and 4 plus 4 over 3. This is 2, 4 over 2. 0 over 2 give me 0 and 8 over 2 give me 4. So here's the center. Now, so this is H and this is K. So I'm searching for an equation, start with a power 2 and there's no H. And the K is 4. And the major axis is 9. And the, sorry, in the denominator 9 and in the denominator 4. Matches my answer. There is no H here. Started with the major, which is 9. Here is the minor, and here is the K. Okay, what is the length of the major axis? Major axis, of course, is the greater, so 36 equal a power 2. So a equal 6, and the major axis equal 2a, so 2 times 6 equal 12. What is the center of the ellipse? Center, H and K. Here is the H, and here is the K, but we have to change the sign. So -3 and 2. You give me an equation and asking me about the length of the minor. The minor is the smallest, so here b power 2 equals 16. So b equal 4. So 2b would be 2 times 4 equal 8. This is the minor axis. So 8 units. Find the eccentricity of the ellipse. Remember the rule of the eccentricity. The eccentricity equals c over a. And c equals the square root of a power 2 minus p power 2. And this is p power 2, and this is a power 2. As we agree, a is greater than b all the time. So the b here is 7, and a here is 8. So let's apply the rule. E equal square root of 64 minus 49 over the a, which is 8. What is 64 minus 4? It's the square root of 15 over 8. Let's get an approximated answer. The next perfect square would be root 16, right? So I could say this is approximately 4 over 8, which is 0.5. So I'm searching for something which is closer to 0.5, which is 0.6. Okay, here's the rules for the circle. So easy. If you have a circle with a center 0 and 0, so the equation would be x power 2 plus y power 2 equal r power 2. So this means the center 0 and 0. Now, if you switch the center, so this means that you are switching the x and switching the y. So you have to add h and k. So it would be here x minus h power 2 plus y minus k power 2 equal r power 2, and the center would be h and k. Now let's apply this rule. the center of the circle, H and K. Here's H, and here is the K. So I have to change the sign, of course. So it's -5 and 4. And if I'm asking you about the radius, r power 2 equals 36. So this means that the r equal 6. Okay, let's go for the ellipses. The ellipse is just like two parabola, but they're opposite to each other. And of course, we have to focus here. A parabola and another parabola. And now you have the focus and another focus. Here is the vertex, and here's the vertex. Now, we have two axes. Major axis, we call it the transverse. And we have minor axis, which is the conjugate axis. We have also a line, we call it asymptote, which is a line that does not touch the curve. Now here you have to know some letters. The distance between the center and the vertex here, we call it A. And also the distance between the center and the co-vertex, which is, we call it P. And the distance between the center and the focus, this one, we call it C. You remember the rule for eccentric? Eccentric equals C over A. For hyperbola, all the time E should be greater than 1. Remember, E equals 0, so it's circle. Between 0 and 1, so it's ellipse. Greater than 1, so it's hyperbola. Let's go for the rules. Here you have the same formula for the ellipses, but here you have the negative sign in the middle. Sorry, this is the negative sign, not. Also, you have to know if it's a horizontal transverse axis or vertical major axis or transverse axis. So here, if it's horizontal, this means that you're gonna start with the x. If it's vertical, you're gonna start with the a. So this means that the x part is squared. And if it's vertical, this means that the y part is squared. Of course, the center also, h and k, but we have to switch the sign. If I need the vertices, this means I have to subtract or add a. If it's horizontal, you add it to the h. If it's vertical, you add it to the k. And if I need the foci, this means I need to add or subtract c. The same as ellipses. If it's horizontal, you add it for the h, and if it's vertical, you add it for the k. The transverse axis would be, if it's horizontal, so y equal k, and if it's vertical, so x equal h. For the conjugate, you switch, just like ellipses, major and minor, the same rule. Now for the asymptote, y minus k equal positive or minus b over a. If it's horizontal, so it would be b over a. If it's vertical, so it would be a over b. Okay, and we know that the c here would be the square root of a power 2 plus p power 2. In ellipses, it was different. In ellipses, it was a power 2 minus p power 2. But in hyperbola, it would be a power 2 plus p power 2. And the eccentric, as I told you, c over a, and e all the time would be greater than 1 for hyperbola. Now let's try to solve some problem in it. Now let's summarize what we've taken before. We have here the standard forms for the conic section, all of it. The circle, you could know it. but you have to differentiate between the ellipse, hyperbola, and the parabola. For ellipse and hyperbola, for ellipse, the sign here is positive, but for hyperbola, it's negative. Another difference. For ellipse, you switch between the A and B of if it's horizontal or vertical. If it's horizontal, you start with A power 2, vertical, you start with B power 2. But for hyperbola, you start with X. If it's horizontal, even if it's vertical, you start with Y. For the parabola, if it's horizontal, this means there's a squared part on the Y. And if it's vertical, this means there's a squared part on the X. Also, we have something called the standard form for all of the conic section, which is ax power 2 plus bxy plus cy power 2 plus dx plus ey plus f. And you have to know the coefficient for each one. A is the coefficient for x power 2, b coefficient for xy, c coefficient of y power 2, the d is the coefficient of x, and e is the coefficient of y, and f is a constant. So we have something called the determinant p power 2 minus 4ac. We have many cases for it. If it's smaller than 0, so you have two cases. If the coefficient b equal to 0 and the coefficient a equal to c, so this one is circle. If the coefficient b does not equal 0 and a does not equal c, so it's ellipse. Now, if it's greater than 0, so it's hyperbola. If it's equal to 0, so it's parabola. Now let's apply these rules. What is the equation of the transverse axis of the hyperbola? First, I have to know it's horizontal or vertical. Horizontal, this means I start with x. Vertical means I start with y. Now let's see. I started with y or x, I started with y. So this is vertical transverse axis, vertical. So if I'm asking about the transverse axis equation, so it would be x equal to h. So x here equal to 1. Okay, here x power 2 minus y power 2 plus 9. Which one of these represent hyperbola, parabola, ellipse, and circle? Okay, just to be sure about your understanding, the only equation that you have a negative sign between the x power 2 and y power 2 was the hyperbola. Other than this, all of them positive. So it matches the equation for it. It's for x power 2 minus y power 2 equal negative 9. This is a constant. And you have a negative sign here, so it's hyperbola. Let me remind you with the equation of the hyperbola, it was like this. Now you have a constant here. Yes, it matches there, the constant. There is no h, there is no k, and we could consider a power 2 and b power 2 is 1, so this is matches the hyperbola. Which of the following equation touch both coordinate axes? Okay. To touch the both coordinate axes, this means it has to be a circle. And the radius should be equal to the h and k. So I'm searching for an equation to the center or the radius equal to h and k. This one is not a circle because you have a negative sign here, so it's hyperbola. Now here, x power 2, this is 0, and negative 1 the center. So, and the radius is root 2. Doesn't match. Here, the radius is 3, and h and k here are equal. It doesn't matter about the sign. The sign is just about the direction. Okay, that's good. So here, for this one, the r is root 2, and you have 2 and negative 2. It doesn't match. So the only choice here is C. What is the equation of the hyperbola with center at 2 and -4 and focus at 7 and -4 and a transverse axis length of 8? Okay, let me remind you with the formula for the hyperbola, which is x minus h. Let me see first, it's vertical or horizontal. As you see here, the x-axis is changing, so this means it's horizontal. So once it's horizontal, here's the equation. Good. Now we know the center, so it's x minus 2 all to the power 2. And the transverse axis was length 8. You know that the 2a equal 8, so a equal 4. So 4 power 2 is 16 minus y. Here's -4, so it be positive 4 over p power 2 equal 1. We didn't know the b, right? But we could know the c, because we know that the c power 2 equal a power 2 plus b power 2. And what is the c? The distance between the center and the focus. As you see here, it's moving from 2 to 7, so just 5 units. So this means it's a 25 equal a power 2, which is 16, plus p power 2. So this means that the b power 2 equal to 9. So I'm going to erase this one here and write 9. But it's not matching the form that I have it here. So I will try to do the common denominator, or use the butterfly method. Here's the butterfly method, like this. So it would be here 9 times x minus 2 all to the power 2 minus 16 times y plus 4 all to the power 2. 16 times 9 equal 144. So where is the answer? Here's it. Actually, you could choose the answer without doing any of this, because you know that the hyperbola you have a negative sign between the x and y, right? So you have only choice A and B that having this. So maybe one of your answer you have, it's A or B. So I could neglect these choices. What is the length of the transverse axis of the hyperbola? First, it's horizontal or vertical? Horizontal, because we start with the x. So the length of the transverse axis, it's 2a. So here's a power 2 and here's p power 2, right? Good. So a equal 5. So 2a equal 2 times 5 equal 10. What is the asymptote equation of the hyperbola? Vertical or horizontal? It's vertical because we start with the y. So the asymptote equation would be y minus k, positive or minus a over b times x minus h. Where is y minus k? It's y minus 2. Positive or minus. Where is a and where is b? Here's a and here is p power 2. So a here 2 and b is 5. So 2 over 5 x plus 1. Where's the answer? Here's it. What are the foci of the hyperbola? Okay, vertical or horizontal? It's vertical because we start with the y. So the foci, this means I'm going to add the c to the k, right? So h and k positive or minus c. And what is the c? Would be equal a power 2 plus p power 2. So here c equal the square root of 36 plus 20. So it's the square root of 56. Now, where's the h and k? H and k are 0. There is no h and k. So here 0 and 0 positive or minus the square root of 56. So here's it. What type of conic section is represented by the equation? Good. This means we have to use the determinant b power 2 minus 4ac, right? Let's arrange it. Do you remember the general equation that we know? It's ax power 2 plus pxy plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f equal to 0. Now, what is the coefficient? A equal 1 and c, which is the coefficient of y power 2, is 1. And we don't have b, so it's 0. And where's, yeah, so let's now apply it. So 0 power 2 minus 4 times 1 times 1 give me negative 4. Do you remember if it's smaller than 0, we have two cases, circle or ellipse. If it's circle, this means that A equal to C and B equal to 0. So yes, this is a circle. Again here, 9x power 2. So A here equal 1, sorry, equal 9. And C equals 16. And I don't have B here. B is 0. Let's apply it. So 0 power 2 minus 4 times 9 times 16. Of course, it would be smaller than 0, right? Now, B is 0 and A does not equal C. This means this is the case for ellipse. Which of the following equation represent a parabola? Parabola means that the determinant equal to 0. So p power 2 minus 4ac equal to 0. So I have to find p and a and c. Now, b is the coefficient of xy, right? We don't have here any xy, so b equals 0. So it would be 0 minus something equal to 0, right? So this means I have to multiply by 0 here to get 0. So maybe A is 0 or maybe C is 0. So I'm searching for something here that A equal to 0 or C equal to 0. Not this one. Not this one also because this is 1 and 1. Here A is 1 and I don't have C. Yes, C is 0. So here's my answer. Okay, the equation represents. Okay, let's calculate the determinant. P power 2 minus 4ac. Where is b? It's 4. B is the coefficient of xy. So 4 power 2 minus 4 times 1, which is the coefficient of x power 2, times c, the coefficient of y power 2, which is 16. So obviously it would be smaller than 0, right? Good. So smaller than 0, maybe it's ellipse or circle. Circle mean it's A equal to C and B does not equal to 0. Here, B equal to 0. Here, B does not equal 0 and A does not equal C. So this is my choice, ellipse.